The Bears travelled to Cumbria on Sunday and came off second best to an excellent Barrow Raiders side. We've got the story of Sunday's game, plus news of some exciting new teams that we'll be facing in the next couple of years. This is your official Coventry Bears podcast. This is Bare Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bare Necessities, your official Coventry Bears podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube and at coventrybears.com. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me as ever is former Bears fullback Craig Cathcart. Craig, how are you?
Yes, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Disappointing results at the weekend, but a very exciting week for rugby league.
Absolutely, yeah, and we will get into all of that. So coming up this week, we have got that exciting news from the other side of the pond, and we've got another song from a local band for you to play us out. But first, let's look back to Sunday and the Bears' trip to Barrow Raiders, which sadly ended in a 56 defeat for the Bears. The Bears had a particularly tough first half, found themselves 36-0 down at the break, but were much more positive after half-time. They scored a try through Liam Wellham, which Brad Clavering converted. However, the Raiders were still able to add another 14 points to their tally, which took the final score to Raiders 50, Bears 6. Now, normally we hear from Bears director of rugby Alan Robinson, but it's his birthday this week, so we've given him the episode off. Happy birthday, Alan. However, he did post a comment on the Bears' social media channels after Sunday's game, which went as follows. I'm not going to do the accent, don't worry. As with last week, we started the game poorly and allowed Barrow to race to a lead that we spent the game chasing. Our defensive efforts and game sense in certain areas were not good enough for this level, and we were punished. The second half was different, and we got into an arm wrestle which saw us dominate parts of the half and play more positively to get something out of the match. We have a week off and then must travel to West Wales Raiders, who are also without a win. Both clubs will be making it a critical game to win this season. We are a better team than this, but we won't play many better teams than Barrow Raiders. They will be the team to beat this season and have come down from a championship with a plan to go straight back up. Their pack are formidable and they have the pace out wide to back it up. We were very unhappy with that performance. We're all under no illusions that we must be better, and we won't be making any excuses, just facing the reality of what we need to do to improve. Those are the post-match comments of Bears director of rugby Alan Robinson. So Craig, I think we may as well go into our match analysis, which is where we pick a few talking points and spend no more than 3 minutes on each. Should be pointed out that neither of us were able to make the trip up north, so this is sort of intelligence gathered from our various sources, as we try and do when we can't make it to an away game. But our talking points to cover this week are, number one, that as Alan Robinson said, Barrow are one of the best sides we'll have to face this season, and we have to have some perspective around that. Number two was that the second half was much better, and it feels like that match sharpness is starting to come along. And then number three, the Bears now have a week off to really focus on travelling to West Wales. There is a real chance for a win in that game and revenge for last season. So let's jump into the first point then, the fact that Barrow are a very good team. Craig, I'm going to set the timer going and you can kick this one off. So Barrow Raiders, very good. Discuss.
Yeah, so I said last week that, they've retained much of the squad that they had in the championship. They're a very, very good side, particularly at home. They've been in the championship for a couple of years, so they've got a lot of seasoned players. They've got a very good coaching setup. They're doing a lot of work off the field to bring more people in. So it was always going to be a challenge. I think where the Bears came unstuck was struggling with the speed of the Barrow play in the first half. I mean, they really were blitzed. They made a real good fist of it in the second half. Even the Barrow coach commented on how well the Bears had done in the second half and give them great credit for that, which after our discussions last week about coaches' comments after the game was a nice thing to hear. I know that the words from Alan were quite strong, really. I know that he was very disappointed with the first half performance, much more pleased with the second half and how that had gone. But credit to the Bears, because you know what? It showed that they were able to adapt their game. They got a real shock to the system in the first half. They adapted their game and improved after the break and shut down Barrow for large parts of the second half. And it fit, 14-6 in the second half. Had the Bears started better, it would have been a much closer game. But you know what? Barrow are going to put a lot of teams to the sword this year, in particularly when they play at home.
Yeah, and I think that's the key point for me here is having that perspective as to the disparity between the two teams. Barrow this time last year were playing in the Championship. It's not even like they were relegated by a distance in the Championship, but they were fighting for survival right through to the end. And they are a very well-established, well-connected rugby league side in a part of the country that has got a much bigger pool of players to pick from. And as we said, they are looking to bounce back. I mean, they've been putting hashtag #BounceBack2020 on all of their social media posts from the moment they got relegated. They are under no illusions that they want out of League One. They want to get back into the Championship. That's clearly where they see where they belong. And as you say, Craig, they're going to beat plenty of teams, and they're probably going to beat plenty of teams by a bigger scoreline than the Bears were on the wrong side of on Sunday. So even though it was a heavy defeat at the weekend, I would be amazed if there are teams that don't get a bigger walloping up at Barrow this season than the Bears have faced. And as we're going to talk about in a moment, the second half was much better, so that there are definitely positives to take. So good. That's the first talking point done. Let's go into that second one then. The fact that the second half was better and the match sharpness is starting to come along. I'll start this one. So we'll start with timer. We talked last week about how big an impact that lack of competitive action for the Bears was in the Thunder game last week, and how they were caught cold a few points, and it gave them a too big a mountain to climb. And it feels like Sunday was perhaps more of the same. Obviously, as Alan said in his post-match comments, the first half definitely wasn't good enough. But as we've already mentioned, the second half they really dug in, grit their teeth, and matched Barrow for large parts of it. And as you said, Craig, really shut them down. And we've got to take the positives from that, because as we've already discussed, there are going to be few teams in this division that the Bears play this year that are as good as Barrow, and that's what clubs like the Bears have to do, particularly going into a week off. Now they've got time to reflect and focus on the positives. The negatives have happened, the points have been shipped. There's no point in fussing or worrying over those. Instead, it's about focusing on where they can learn from and what they did well. And that second half was so much better. And there was it was a much closer scoreline in the second half. There were points where it was even looking like the Bears might have a chance of winning the second half, which would have been a massive thing. And it's still only their second game of the season. It's a long season, and to have such a disrupted off-season and still be able to put in a battling display, albeit for only half a game this time, but we've got to take those positives, and you and I are the masters of finding positives in the Bears' performance. So even though it's not the kind of result you want to see as a fan week in, week out, I think with that bit of perspective that we already talked about and that second half performance, there are things to take from it. So 120 left for you, Craig, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was issues around the conditions as well. It started off surprisingly as a sunny day in Barrow, and the second half the rain came down. But I don't think that was the full tale of the half. The Bears found a way to slow the play down. Barrow were playing it too quickly, smashing the Bears through the middle and then spreading it wide. Bears managed to tactically slow Barrow down and disrupt their flow, and it worked for large parts in the second half. But for a late try in the half, they would have finished pretty even in the second half. So there's positives to take there. I mean, I would rather have it, I'd rather they start well, but in some ways it's almost better to put in a good second half performance, because it means that your heads didn't drop and that you fought all the way to the end.
And we've seen Bears teams in the past do that. Like in the life of this podcast, that there are Bears teams that would have been on the end of a real big scoreline on Sunday, and it's positive that they're able to shut down a bit.
Yeah, as you said, I think Barrow will put a number of teams, put big points on a number of teams this year. I think they look very, very impressive. They're favourites. They are favourites to win the league for a reason. And the Bears have had a horrible start. Newcastle and then Barrow, the two favourites to go up. And but that'll only make the team stronger.
Definitely. And that's a very useful segue into our third and final talking point this week. The fact that the Bears now have a week off, but then their next game is away to West Wales Raiders, which is going to be one of those games that they would have targeted right from when the fixture list came out as a chance for a win. And I guess also a chance to atone for that defeat in West Wales last year, which was the West Wales Raiders' first ever victory at this level. So Craig, you can start this one off. I'll start a timer. A week off and then West Wales, that is a real chance to get our season running, isn't it?
I think it's a big one. I think after such a difficult start or tough start with the first two games, and then really, you don't want to talk about must-win games already at this point of the season, but it pretty much is. And without wanting to put pressure on the guys, I think they know that. I think they know they have to go there and win if they want to have any chance of progressing this season. Last year was a massive disappointment for me that the team went there and lost, but fair play to West Wales. They were the better team on the day, and no excuses for that performance last year, but they need to be better this year, and they need to go there with more determination and need to go there and get the win. They'll be targeting that as an opportunity to win. They'll be thinking that after last year's result, they've got a real good chance of winning, and they'll be playing with confidence. They've actually had not too bad a start to the season. They've shown some real flashes of great stuff in the first couple of games. The new coach seems to be making a bit of a difference, so it won't be a walkover by any means. It'll be a tough game for the Bears, and they'll run it in hard, and they'll tackle hard, and they'll do everything that they can to get the win. So Bears need to just dig in and give it a good go and play like we know they can do, and try and not start slow on this one. Get stuck in right from the off.
Yeah, exactly. I'd echo everything you said there. I think the key thing for the Bears here is we know we've got really good quality in the backline for the Bears this season, and we saw glimpses of it in the Thunder game where they were sort of learning when to hold it in the middle, when to sort of take a short pass and just take the tackle, and then earning the right to go wide and spin it wide and try and get it out to the flyers more. And I think that's what they've got to do at this one. They've got to play sensibly, they've got to be composed, they've got to be patient, and they've got to be calm with it. And I'm confident if they do that the opportunities will come for them, and the players we've got in our backline will be able to exploit those. It kind of reminds me of the game down in West Wales in 2018, where it was a bit of a ding-dong battle for quite a lot of it, but the Bears held their nerve and they had confidence in their own ability, and they ended up winning quite comfortably. And I mean, we'll take any type of win really, just to get one chalked up on the board this season, but it would be nice if we can get a performance for as long a part of the game as possible, and really start to see what they've been working on in the off season and seeing what this squad can do, and give them a bit of confidence to bring back to the butts when Doncaster come at the end of the month, because that's going to be another really tricky one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first two matches, there's stuff to build on there. There's been glimpses of real good stuff. Need to carry forward into the West Wales game. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what this squad are capable of.
Absolutely. So that's that. That's our analysis done, and that's probably enough talk about last Sunday. So now we teased it at the start of the episode. We've done looking ahead to the next game. We're going to look ahead to the next couple of seasons, because some exciting things are coming League One's way. So in 2022, it looks like New York are going to be joining. More on that in a moment, but much more pressing, is the confirmation that the Ottawa Aces will be joining the division next season. So some background on that for you. This is just taken from the BBC article write-up. So in case you hadn't twigged from the name, Canadian rugby league side Ottawa Aces going to join League One in 2021 after taking on Hemel Stags licence. So the new club going to play their home matches at Ottawa's TD Place Stadium, and they're going to be basing their pre-season camp in England. Chairman Eric Perez, whose name you might recognise, having been associated with the Toronto Wolfpack, he said that they're going to be appointing a head coach in the next 5 or 6 weeks, and they'll be able to recruit players from June onwards in the transfer window. So Craig, we both missed out on the chance to go to Toronto when the Wolfpack were in League One. It's quite exciting, the idea of potentially a little trip to Ottawa next year, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be very nice, although because the Bears are going to get promoted at the end of the season, that might not happen.
Well, we'll have to wait till 2022 then, I guess.
Yeah, but no, it's very, very exciting. I think one thing I regret was not going over to Toronto when the opportunity was there, and I hope that next season we'll get a chance to do that. I think it's very, very exciting for the game. By the signs of it, there is a lot of support within Canada for the team, a lot of support locally. There's talk about the head coach being I can't remember his name now, ex-Catalans coach. So that would be a high-profile coach. He seems to be making more noises about trying to develop young players and having an academy and everything else. So, it'll be tricky for them to get off the ground. But Eric Perez has the history there of getting Toronto off the ground and getting things set up, and it's very exciting. There's always naysayers out there, isn't there, who don't want the game to be expanding into new territories. But it's massive for the sport to have a second Canadian team. It means that Toronto are not an outlier. It means that there is people out there who want to develop more teams and bring more money into the game, more sponsorship. Eventually, given time, a bigger pool of players will be available to us. And it's massive for a club like the Bears to get the exposure of a transatlantic game as well. I imagine Butts Park Arena next year, a Canadian team coming to visit. That's a massive opportunity to market a game to everyone and create a buzz around the city. It's huge.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely great. And like you say, the excitement not only for the immediate prospect of Ottawa being in League One next season, but for the continued growth and future development of the game. And there have been other names bandied around as potentially joining League One. The other one that has been talked about this week is New York, who I also mentioned a while ago. Now, the latest news on that project, it doesn't look like they're going to be joining in 2021, which was a date that had been thrown around when we talked about New York previously. It looks like they're going to enter the Challenge Cup in 2021, and they're going to try and host a couple of NRL matches and possibly even some pre-World Cup internationals, and then they want to join League One in 2022. So again, Craig, it's difficult not to get excited about this, isn't it? Like New York coming to Coventry to play rugby league, it kind of sounds a bit fantasy, but at the same time it sounds really brilliant as well.
I think New York is the big one, isn't it? Third North American team, but actually being based in New York and playing out of an iconic stadium as well. My only slight reservations is, and I think this just is because of how massive it could be for the sport and how massive it could be for TV deals, for marketing, for sponsorship, for everything. To have a New York branded team in there is huge, but it does seem too good to be true. At the moment, it seems too good to be true. There's a lot of talk about, what they're going to be bringing to the game and what they're going to be doing. I think there's a little bit more to, we probably need a bit more information at this stage, but that's not to temper the excitement. If it happens, it's going to be absolutely amazing. Again, imagine trying to market a game, New York coming to Coventry, bringing some star players along. It's going to be huge.
So let's get back to Ottawa then. So, they're going to be joining League One next season, and obviously taking aside the Bears' imminent promotion and meaning that we'll have to wait a little longer to meet Ottawa. If we should end up still being in League One next year, Craig, and Ottawa coming over, do you think that feels like a game where you would want to bring someone to their first rugby league match, for example, to say, forget all this stuff about teams from the north of England, come and make your first game Coventry versus Ottawa, and really make sure that they're, you're turning them into expansionists right from the start. There's just so many possibilities around how you can get excited about Ottawa, isn't there?
There is. Unfortunately, due to the structure of League One at the time, Toronto didn't play here in Coventry. But everywhere they did play, those teams that played them saw a massive increase in the number of fans coming to home games. So it's marketable. They're the new boys in town. They're likely, if they're anything like Toronto, they'll likely sign a couple of star players. They will just bring an increase in social media exposure. There's a lot of Canadian expats as well in the UK who are interested in this. General rugby fans will be interested in what this is all about. Coventry's a rugby mad city. I can see people, people's interest being piqued by this. It is one of those games where if you market it right, you're going to see big crowds coming down to watch. And as I said, creating a real buzz from it. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah,
the
me
away
too.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that I heard that all of their home games are going to be shown on live TV, so that would be massive as well. Seeing the Bears live over there for everyone here in the UK, it would be great.
Yeah. Great stuff. Well, we obviously still got the rest of this season to get through before Ottawa join, but yes, we can both confidently say that we are very excited about the prospect of having the Ottawa Aces in League One next season, and we're looking forward to welcoming them to the Butts, assuming that the fixtures allows us to do that. But enough excitement, I guess. That probably does us for this week. So thanks as always for listening, and thanks, Craig, for joining as ever. All that's left now is for us to hear from another local band to play us out, which we're doing in conjunction with the Bears all season, of course. This week it's the turn of Wilde and their song Heavy Load. So Wilde are a 4-piece rock and roll band that formed in 2015 and by all accounts are well worth seeing live. If you like what you hear here, then do head over to facebook.com/Wilde Band, and that's WILDE band, and check them out. But until then, Craig and I will see you soon, and to play you out, this is Heavy Load by the band Wilde.
Pictures of the misconception scriptures that miss us. But this is all just manipulation.